Hi, Kyle Thomas here, and in this video I'm going to show you the basics of using Linux Mint. I advise you to watch the prequel to this, which is installing Linux Mint into a virtual machine, because I'm going to go over some specific stuff for virtual machines with this introductory video, but if you aren't using it in a virtual machine, hopefully this will still be of use to you. So we're gonna go here back into VMware Workstation, and the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna edit the virtual machine settings, because I noticed when you power it on, it still tries to mount the installation image that we had. I deleted it off my desktop, so it'll definitely complain because that file's gone. So go ahead and change that to use physical drive, and then uncheck the box connect at power on. That way it doesn't keep trying to mount your installation file. And after you do that, we'll go ahead and start the machine. Okay, and so here's the login screen for Linux. I think if there's more users, they'll appear here. I'm not entirely sure how that would look actually. And it's got the computer name up here, your power button, the time, keyboard layout, and accessibility options. So, and then here, actually, if you install multiple desktop environments, you can select them from here. If you just installed one, and then don't ever worry about that unless you want to try others out. So you type in your password. Okay, and so here's the desktop, and it pops up with a nice welcome message. If you want to see this every time, you can go ahead and go through these and look at it. I don't want it to always show up, so uncheck that box and it won't appear anymore. And so the first thing that we're going to do is there's going to be a lot of updates to install. So I'm going to show you how to install updates on Linux, and also show you how it's 1,000 times better than Windows. When Windows has updates, everyone wants to cry and throw a fit because it's awful. But with Linux, updating is really easy. If there are updates available, this little shield icon down here, it'll have that blue exclamation point. If there are no updates, it'll have a green check mark. So it tells us updates are available. So we'll click on it. And it has some helpful information here. Go ahead and hit OK when you're done with that. And right now it's finding the list of updates. And it wants you to go ahead and set up system snapshots. Since this is a virtual machine, there's another way to set it up with the virtual with the virtual machine, so I wouldn't bother with this. So there we go. So here's what the snapshot screen looks like, but we don't want to do that. So we're going to go to edit preferences, and so that's something to notice too with Linux. With Windows, most of the time you go file settings for the settings for an app. In Linux, it's almost always edit preferences. So in here, we're going to uncheck show a warning if snapshots are not set up, and then we're also going to check don't suggest switching to a local mirror. It might work better now, but in the past, I've had it, the mirror I selected wasn't up to date, like the main mirror. So if you keep it on the main mirror, then that won't happen. So go ahead and hit apply, and it has search the list again, of course. Okay, so here's when it says Mint update and Mint upgrade info, these two small updates will show you all the larger updates. So you hit install updates, and it's wants your password to install software. Okay, and then it's gonna go ahead and download and install those updates. And again, you can watch the output. Okay, that was quick. Okay, so usually it is because it's just finding the actual list. So here's all the actual updates. So unlike Windows, this shows you exactly which files are going to be updated, which apps. So it's a pretty big list the first time, but they're all checked, and it tells you how many are selected and the size of them. So go ahead and install the updates. And this tells you that it's also going to install all of these additional packages that weren't installed on your system before. So just go ahead and hit OK. And again, it wants your password. Okay, and so it's going to download and install these updates. And if you hit show individual files, it'll show you what's actually happening. And it gives you an estimate. So while that's going, I'll show you some other things. So just like Windows, it has a start menu down here. And then this one is the desktop shower, Firefox, the terminal, your file explorer, and then, what we have open right now. I always like to remove some of these because they're a little obnoxious. And you can add some, let's see. Yeah, applets. So you can go here to applets. Here's all the ones that you have installed on the system already. I'm going to show you a neat one. Okay, the Windows Workspace Switcher, excuse me. Okay, so this one's pretty cool. I'll just show you this one as an example of how almost all of them works. So hit the plus button, and it appears right here. And we'll go ahead and exit out of that. And so this is like virtual desktops. Windows 10 did actually finally get this, but Linux has had it for a while. So this is one we're on now, Workspace 1. So if you click on this one, that animation sounds a little weird. Anyways, this is the second one. So as you can see, has something completely different. So you can use this one for browsing files, and a third one for something else. So you can go back to the first one. So that's a pretty neat way to have your system. And then I think, let's see, I usually only like 2. There's somewhere in here there's a way to change it. Yeah, okay, you can actually close them and add them, and I think hitting the Windows key does that. Nope, Windows tab. Okay, I'm not too used to Cinnamon. Mostly use GNOME for Arch on Arch Linux, but anyway, so that's how you can do the workspaces. And now I'll show you the settings page. So start menu, and then this one is the settings, and we can turn off some of those obnoxious sounds that kept happening. So let me find it. There we go, sound. So in here in sounds, you can come turn on and off some of these. I don't really like any sounds really. Maybe inserting and removing a device would be nice. And the sound volume, we can keep that one on. And as you can see, there's a lot of other settings in here you can go ahead and change. And so the settings are pretty nice. You can change the theme if you want. You can have your whole system set to a dark theme. You can change the color of all your folders. So yeah, just changed to blue from green. The controls, so you can change, you have quite a bit of control. You can even you can even download more themes if you want. I think it's in the add and remove. Okay, you'll have to do that the first time, but I'm not going to, since I don't know if you can do that at the same time you're updating. Some other things in here, your display settings, Bluetooth, power management. If you're on a laptop, it's a good one to look at. Somewhere in here there's a way to change these to the left side if you want, if you're coming from a Mac. Startup applications, so you can turn off the Mint welcome. I don't think it's gonna make startup that any slower, especially if you uncheck it, but you can go ahead and uncheck it if you want. Notifications. You can change the notifications. They pop up right up here, and you can click on to get rid of them. They used to have different kinds. Looks like you can just change where it is. So it looks like they've removed some of those. The privacy is just remember your recently accessed files. I don't know if you want that on or off. I don't think that's going to make too big of a difference if you're the only user. Maybe it puts it in a temporary folder that everyone can get to. I'm not quite sure. System info is nice. It gives you some information about your RAM and your hard drive size, graphics adapter. You can actually change how the login window works, and you have to put your password in for the more sensitive settings, but you can change the background of the login screen. You can change the theme of it. So again, if you just really like the mint Y Aqua, there's quite a bit of configuration in here. You can so this one, you can type in the name of a user instead of selecting one. You can hide the user list. You can make a guest session. You can have it automatically log in with a certain user. Here's some monitor settings. You can actually, it looks like you can add or remove some of those icons we had at the top. We'll go over the driver manager after the updates are done. That one's actually a pretty important one. So I'm going to show you the firewall real quick. It's called GUFW, Graphical not Universal, Uncomplicated Firewall. That's what it's called. So you can turn it on, and it has some specific rules in here. So by default, it'll deny everything incoming, and it'll allow anything outgoing. And to add rules, you go over to the Rules tab and hit the plus button, and you can set the policy. All of these for the application. So in here is where you would find SSH. That scroll's kind of terrible. This isn't that important unless you're running a server. So most of the time you're gonna want to just turn it on, and you should be good to go. And I will fast forward once the updates are done. Okay, so now that our updates are done, we can see it has a green check mark down here, and it says our system's up to date. So we can go ahead and exit out of that. And so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to fix this resolution issue. And so I looked up how to do that. So we're going to open up the terminal. So go ahead and click down here. You can also, if you like hotkeys, hold down Control-Alt-T and it'll open it up. I use that one quite a bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to install the virtual machine tools in our guest OS, which is Linux Mint. So to do that, we're going to type sudo, which means super user or a substitute user do, which basically just means I temporarily need root privileges to install something. And the name of the app we're going to run, which is called APT. It's how you install and remove software. There's a lot more you can do with it, but that's what you basically do with it. And we're going to type install because we're installing software. And we're going to type open VM tools and then open VM tools desktop, and then hit enter. And it wants our password, so go ahead and type it in. And on some Linux distributions, it doesn't put asterisks, it just doesn't have anything, but your password is in there. So even if you don't see anything, type your password in and hit enter. Okay, and so now it's telling you that it's going to have to install other packages as well. That's fine. And then it has some suggested packages, recommended packages. When you can install those afterwards if you like, but we don't need to. And then it tells you a summary, so you can see right here it says 0 upgraded, 4 newly installed, 0 to remove. So that's just a summary of what it's doing. It's going to say how big the download is and how much disk space is going to be taken up. And so now it says, do we want to continue? And so since the Y is capitalized, that means it's the default. So you can just hit enter and it'll install it. You can type an N and hit enter and it will quit. You can type a capital Y, a lowercase y, and it'll go. But we're just going to hit enter since it's the default. And now we can see it installing. Okay, and so now we're all done with that, so we can go ahead and exit out, and we can go up here and enter full screen mode. So, yay, we now have a full screen virtual machine. And so now I'll show you just a couple more things that you can do with Linux. So, I know we jumped into the terminal right away just to fix that one issue, but it was fairly quick and painless. Normally to install software, we'll go down here, and then we'll go to the software manager, and then this is the normal way to install software, or the graphical way. This is just like the Windows Store, what do they call it, the Microsoft Store, the Google Play Store, or the Apple Store. So you should be familiar with at least one of these apps. So to install them, you just click on it, and it's got screenshots, details, reviews, just like any other app store. You hit install, it'll install it. You have to provide your password to install things. And I think everything in here is free. I'm not entirely sure. Most of it's free. Okay, so it's all done installing. So now we can find it in here, put it in the programming tab, because Subline's an IDE. So there it is. You can exit. If you want to remove it, you just remove it from the software center. You can do other things while it's doing that. Somewhere in here we go. So these three bars show installed packages. It'll show you everything you've installed from the software center. So that's how you can remove them if you have to free up disk space or something. Now I'll show you some of the files in Linux. It's a little bit different than Windows. So here in your home folder, you have the usual familiar files. If you go to the file system, the equivalent of C:* in Linux is the /. It's called the root directory. So here's everything in there. So in media or mount MNT is generally where things like flash drives go. So in Windows, it's when you put a flash drive in, it's generally like E:. Well, in Linux, it'll pop up over here, and it just leads you into this media folder and in your name, and that's how you'll access it. So it'll be like /media /groot / and then the device name. So it's just a little bit different. Normally that's not a big deal because it'll pop up in here and you click on it. It is good to know. Also in your home folder, this is kind of neat. So in here, in the templates folder, I already put one in here earlier, but so usually it's blank when you find it. So when you right click and you go create new document, there's the empty document, but you can actually do stuff with it. So if you don't know what a makefile is, that's okay. This is just for examples. So if you have a makefile you make a lot and you want to put stuff in here, I know that's the wrong order. A little embarrassing. Okay, so you have the basic structure of a makefile. Well, now anywhere else you are, so if you're in documents, you can right click and go create new document and select makefile, and it'll actually put in the makefile with the default package and clean. So that's pretty handy. Quite handy, especially if you do a lot of software development and your IDE doesn't automatically make all this for you. And so I think that covers the basics. Let me think real quick if there's anything I missed. I showed you already how to edit the panel, I think. Yeah. LibreOffice is the Microsoft Office equivalent. You can also install it in Windows. It's pretty nice, and for the most part, you can use it for everything you use Microsoft Office for. It's a little weird for compatibility sometimes, but that's not in the scope of this video. So, and VLC media player that runs on everything. So yeah, I guess that concludes our introduction to using the Linux Mint Cinnamon desktop. Thanks for watching.